It's pretty rare that a product comes along that is such a clear win to everyone involved in the property transaction. So from a tenant point of view, we can help them reduce the upfront cost of renting. And you can see from the feedback we're getting from tenants that those who want that option absolutely love zero deposit. From a landlord's point of view, you've got, I think on the face of it, most landlords would come to the product thinking that it's a product for tenants, but actually when they look more closely at zero deposit and the benefits we can offer them, they get really excited about the product as well. And obviously letting agents benefit from the same thing. So you add those things together and it's kind of no surprise to us that we're seeing exponential growth, I mean significant growth on a monthly basis. We're rolled out to 1,200 letting agents. We've covered thousands of tenants already. It's a really exciting opportunity. It's a tough market at the moment. There's more legislation coming in and we see zero deposit helping with all of that. There's a wider point here around zero deposit and deposits generally. So if a tenant buys a zero deposit guarantee, it's not a cash deposit. So therefore the landlord is not subject to the same regulations that they would be under a cash deposit. So that's the case today before the tenant fee ban comes in. So as an example, all of the prescribed information, the issues around Section 21, they're no longer relevant when it comes to zero deposit because there's no cash deposit in place, and we deal with all of the distribution of the insurance documents. So that's a big win today, let alone the fact that we deal with the registration with TDS, so the landlord doesn't have to worry about that either. With the tenants fees bill that's coming in on the 1st of June, again, because we're not a cash deposit, the landlord isn't subject to the rules with the cash, the 5-week cap that's coming in. So zero deposit covers 6 weeks. That's not going to change after 1st of June. So now the landlords can see that they've got even more cover with zero deposit than they would have with a cash deposit. So there's a whole host of benefits when tenants choose zero deposit. I think the other thing that's worth pointing out is that obviously the tenant fees bill is outlawing any fee that's conditional upon granting or renewing a lease. So landlords and agents must offer zero deposit as a choice to their tenants. And if the tenant chooses to buy zero deposit in place of the deposit, they'll accept it. So that's the important point to remember around the fees bill. Yes, it's very clear. Zero deposit guarantee isn't a cash deposit, therefore it's not subject to the same rules. Therefore, the prescribed information and those issues that many landlords have around that administration, especially for landlords who are coming into the market relatively infrequently, we take that headache away from them. The important thing to remember with zero deposit is the tenant is still fully accountable for the property. Everything that is covered in the tenancy agreement, zero deposit covers. Really what's happening here is that at the moment, with a cash deposit, the landlord, understandably, is asking the tenant to make a down payment on damage, cleaning or unpaid rent at the end of the tenancy. What we're doing is replacing the need for the tenant to do that. So this isn't a case that the tenant's insured and they're sort of let off the hook if they leave the property in a poor state. And actually we saw a couple of behaviours when we were doing our research. One was if the deposit's locked up and it was locked up 2 years ago and you've got to find another deposit before you move into your next property, are you going to be thinking about your current property or is that deposit long forgotten? Under our product, you will get a bill if you leave any cleaning because we seek collection once we've paid the landlord. And the second thing is rent skipping. So under the cash deposit, it creates real problems for landlords under the existing regime if the tenant skips the last month's rent, because it's not as simple as pre-deposit protection where the landlord could simply dip into the deposit. There's a process that the landlord has to follow. There's no rationale for the tenant to do that under our product because there's no deposit that's left. So some real, in terms of that skin in the game piece, we've made sure that we've replicated the responsibilities that a tenant have under the current cash deposit under zero deposit. So it's probably worth just dealing with the, how is zero deposit as safe as a cash deposit? And we think we've designed something that can give all landlords that comfort. So the first thing is we work closely with Munich Re when we were developing the product, and through their underwriting division, Great Lakes Insurance, every single one of our guarantees is underwritten. So you've got the second largest reinsurer in the world who's put their risk capital behind the product. But naturally, when any landlord hears about insurance, they immediately start worrying about the claims process, because people instinctively know how insurers make money. And that was why, for us, the partnership with TDS was so important. So it's an exclusive partnership where TDS are providing all of the end-of-tenancy disputes. So the way that it works is when you get to the end of a zero-deposit tenancy, if there's a claim that the tenant disputes, the evidence goes through to TDS. TDS review it with exactly the same people as with a cash deposit, and then we pay the landlord based on TDS's findings. So the landlord can have comfort that exactly the same process will be followed, and actually, again, because we're not limited by the same regulations as the deposit protection schemes, in some areas we've been able to speed that process up. Under zero deposit, if there's a really messy dispute, that the landlord could get their cash quicker than they could under a traditional cash deposit. The tenant's buying the guarantee for the landlord. It costs 1 week's rent up front. It's not plus tax. That's the all-in price up front. Once that guarantee is in place, it stays in place for the lifetime of the tenancy to a maximum of 10 years. Once the tenant has been in the property for 12 months, there's a £26 per year admin fee, and if there are multiple tenants in any tenancy, all these costs are just split between them. Once the guarantee is in place, there's a contract between the landlord and the insurer, which means that no matter what happens, there's no way that contract can be broken unless unless the landlord does something to break the contract. So a landlord can be really comfortable that once the guarantee is in place, it's like having the registration certificate from one of the deposit protection schemes, but it's underwritten. So really simple process.
All online?
All online. We've built our platform so it's fully adaptable to mobile. It's a very simple process. We've had examples of tenancies being introduced and the tenant being signed up within a few minutes. It's a very simple product with a very simple price. The end of tenancy claims process is also fully online, and we're integrated with TDS. So it's just we deliberately made it as easy as possible for everyone involved.